Hey guys, welcome to the You Don't Know Jack podcast, where we pull back the curtain on the innovation, engineering, and raw passion that makes Roush vehicles stand out on the road, on the track, on the trail, and sometimes even on the water. I'm your host, Josh Massive, alongside the one and only Jack Roush Jr., and today we're diving into something truly special. If you've ever looked at a Roush vehicle and thought, dang, that thing looks good, then this episode's for you.
So this is an area that I'm personally really passionate about. You know, it's not just about, getting the most performance, even though that's really important. It's also about the look. And that is a very hard thing to really describe analytically. You know, it's really something that you feel in your soul, and it really takes that artistry. And, when you combine that with a car, that's a really potent combination of engineering and design. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm really excited about it, and I think you guys will be too.
Yeah, you're right, Jack. So today we're sitting down with two of the masterminds behind that magic, Kevin and Dhruv from Roush Creative Services. And if you want to know how form meets function in the world of high-performance vehicles, these are the guys to talk to. So Kevin, Dhruv, welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. So Kevin, let's start with you. Tell the people about Kevin.
Ooh, gosh, wow. Where to start?
No pressure.
Yeah, exactly. Well, dinosaurs, rise of man. No, I've been here at Roush collectively since 2011. So this will be 14 years this summer. And knew of Roush before then because I was building high-end hot rods using some Roush crate engines. So for several years. But here at Roush, I'm got the recent pleasure of leading the creative services team in the director of operations role, and excited to spend some time talking about that today. So here to my left, though, is...
I'm Dhruv Virkar, senior creative designer at Roush. I've been here since 2018, so almost 7 years almost now. And before that, I was in college, literally pursuing car design as a degree, and graduated and got a job at Roush, and I've been here ever since. So that's kind of my background.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Dhruv, I know we've got a ton of posters of your sketches, renders, drawings all around, and man, they are cool. So you do some awesome stuff, man. So awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining us. I'm excited for this one. I think not a lot of people know that behind every Roush product and vehicle specifically, there's a whole full-on studio that helps us create and design and, really come out with the coolest looking thing. So I kind of want to share some, information and detail about what that looks like from your end. So I guess, Kevin, let's start big, right?
Sure.
What is Roush Creative Services, and what's the role in the larger Roush ecosystem?
Ooh, that's a good one. I like to say we're the welcome mat to Roush. A lot of customers may start with us, but then work their way through the rest of the enterprise. And that's because what we represent is the very first time that an idea is actually going to be put into some form, whether it's, scratches on paper or CAD, or as we work it through our building and our services, we can take those ideas and really work with the customers to phase them out, make sure they're, feasible, they're doable, they're meet regulations and all those other fun things, but also in the end, come out with a physical product, a physical manifestation of that design, because what we have is a super talented team of not just designers, but model makers, painters, light fabrication. And so the cool thing is it's quite often we actually get a customer to come to us that they've got an idea, and they may come back a couple months later, and to see the look on their face when they see their product in person, in front of them the very first time. We've had a couple times where customers just don't know what to say. They come around the corner into one of our studios and see this in front of them for the first time. They've only been thinking about it maybe for years, and see it. And it's a great, inspiring moment for them to have that, realization. Here it is in front of me. So we are about 65 people strong. We, like I mentioned, we do all sorts of aspects of that early side of product development. And it's an exciting time because, man, I don't have the talent of Dhruv, but I've always appreciated that. And to see how that process goes. And it's a process. It is, and Dhruv will certainly talk about that, but this isn't something you just sketch out once and then you're done.
Right.
It goes. So it's a cool thing.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. Actually, if I could just give a little bit of background, it's really easy for us to, talk about what we're doing as though everyone knows. But I think a lot of people don't maybe not have heard this before. But at Roush Performance, we are very proud, I think for a good reason of the quality of product we put out. And a huge part of that is that we're not just developing product within Roush Performance, we're leveraging the engineering capabilities that the larger Roush company has. And the design studio is one of those. We've worked with the design studio ever since the beginning of RPP, to my knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd have to talk about timelines. There might be some technical things with the years. We'd have to go back through, but it's just a really interesting story. There's so much more to tell, and we're going to be sensitive about not talking about certain customer work or things like that. We can only talk about certain things that we do, obviously, but it's I think very eye-opening for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I don't know, Dhruv, if you've got any insight into your day to day, but I know you're constantly in creative mode and coming up with some really cool stuff. Be curious to see what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the design process, it's like Kevin said, it is a process. It's not just you just do one sketch and you're done. And, especially when it comes to our Roush branded vehicles, the car buying process is such a emotional thing where a lot of people get gravitated towards a vehicle based on the looks. So the visual appeal is so important along with the performance aspect of it as well. And I think that's where we creative services have the edge over other competitors, is like we focus on the details of the aesthetics while still making it functional as well. So you get that perfect combination of aesthetics and performance.
Yeah, that's great. So thank you guys for the deep dive there. I think, Roush Creative Services obviously is a major player in how, us at Roush Performance comes out with new products and design it, in the right way. And it's cool to know that, we do have, a whole team behind us to actually get this thing right. So on that topic, thinking of the 24 F-150, obviously a really, I don't want to say long process, but, really focused process where we went through and, we had all the panels on the walls. It was really cool. We went through each sort of design theme, thought through the customer and really kept that in mind throughout the whole design process. And I guess my curious mind is going to, what from your side really differentiated that product when we were going through that?
Yeah, so I think the biggest focal point was the integrated lighting into our grille for the F-150. We've done lighting in the past, but never at this scale where we really animated the Roush brand into our grille. And, I always like to use the analogy of having an evolutionary design process rather than being too revolutionary. I think a lot of car companies these days with their design process try to be too revolutionary, where they're trying too hard to make it different. And a lot of times they lose the DNA of their brand, and that's why you can see it in a lot of performance brands these days, where they kind of lose the appeal of what that car had from a visual standpoint back in the 60s or 70s.
Yeah, the soul.
Yep, the soul of it. And I think we've done a good job over the years where it's been an evolutionary process of, sticking to our DNA, our brand identity, and just making it 30-40% better, and not necessarily trying too hard to make it too different where we alienate our customers away from the brand. And so, our horizontal bars on the grille, for example, it's been in our DNA on the Roush ever since we started doing the F-150. But each time we have kind of improved the way it looks by adding more details to it. And then, 2021, we had the really refined Roush letters into the horizontal bar. And then for 24, we introduced lighting for that Roush. And I think that was a really big game changer.
Yeah. Yeah. No, awesome. And I think too, it's important to note that all this design isn't just, sketches and renders and ideas, right? There's an engineering aspect behind it. And, with our grill, especially, you think through all the high flow features that we put into it and all that. So I guess once you guys have that concept in mind and, we nail down what we want it to look like, what does that back end sort of thing look like where it's like, hey, now we actually have to go make the thing, right? Like, what does that entail?
Yeah, absolutely. So at Roush Creative Services, obviously we have the designers where they start off with the sketches, the ideation stuff, but we also have a team of digital sculptors where we will actually create the sketches in 3D CAD and build those surfaces. And then we also have a studio engineering team where they will work on the B-side attachments on how these parts are going to be attached to the vehicle. And so it's kind of a parallel path where we'll work with the engineering teams, the Alias digital sculptors, and obviously the design team. And we'll kind of create a product, or all the proposals that we're proposing, we'll make sure that they're realistic proposals right from the beginning. So it's not like we're trying to, propose something that can't be made. So it's kind of a cool process to see how each and every single iteration that we do kind of gets refined every single week, and then we finally reach that final product solution for our trucks and the Mustang.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's a key point, right? It's like it is highly engineered. We throw that term around, but to its core, that's what it is, right? So awesome.
Yeah, and one thing just to add to that, talking about the engineering, for creative services, RPP it's a customer, right? It's in-house, so we need to take care of you all. But the cool thing is we also get to leverage things that we work with outside customers, and some of that experience that we get, it's still our knowledge, it's still how to bring something fresh and exciting, and having all of those pieces together makes that design solution even stronger. So
awesome. So we talked through kind of, the process there and, the details behind how the thing actually gets made. What does that look like with other clients? Is it a similar process that, you go through this kind of stuff with our products, but what does that look like with some of your other, I'll call them clients?
Yeah, it's a very similar process. We're involved in not just trucks and Mustangs for, the Roush brand, but we do a lot of aerospace stuff. We're involved in the marine industry, boats. In the aerospace division, we do helicopters, planes. So we're also been working on a spaceship for a big space company. We do semi trucks, a little bit of everything. And so the process from a high level is pretty much the same for no matter whether it's a plane or a car or a motorcycle. We'll start off with, ideation sketches where we're just sketching on paper, 2D sketches and renderings. We'll move into the 3D phase of it and start sculpting those surfaces. And then we'll start going into the actual model making phase, whether it's 3D printing parts, doing a small scale model, or we have, capabilities of doing full size clay models or foam models in our studios. And we have a pretty dedicated paint shop facility in our building as well at Creative Services. So we'll paint the foam model or clay model and we'll make it look like the real thing. So when clients walk in, it looks like it's an actual production intent vehicle, but it's just a model.
Yeah, that's cool. It's funny, if you go to the Roush Museum, there's at least one vehicle in there that was made by our design studio years ago where it looks like a real car, but it's not.
Yeah. So what you're saying, Dhruv, is that you guys are busy. Yeah.
Yep. Always busy.
Yeah. No, that's great. No, that's really cool. And I think for everybody listening, it's kind of eye opening to, cause when you see a product, right, you don't really think about the back end stuff that goes into it, and the design process and all that stuff is such a big part of it. And it does take time, right? And it's a lot that goes into it because, especially with our products, right, Roush Performance, it's not just a product, it's an experience. And we have to make sure that comes across in every way possible. And you guys do a great job at it, obviously. So really cool. So I think what we need to do is pull back the curtain a little bit on Roush Creative Services, and I want to get either a funny story, a good story, or like a favorite project that you guys have worked on recently. So let's start with you, Kevin.
Wow. Okay. It's Josh, what you were just saying is it takes a long process.
Yeah.
I wish that some of our customers would allow for that in their development timeline, because it's quite often that, we get them coming through the door and it's like, we need this in 5 weeks. And it's like, oh, we got to get really thrash at things. Those can be some of the more entertaining, although hair pulling out type of projects, because it does go from that short thing that didn't exist to now in 4 or 5 weeks it's out the door. Trust me, I love all types of customers, all types of projects. At one point last year, I was just sharing before we started about that. I think it was like mid last year, we had a locomotive, a boat, a semi, pieces of a plane, and cars, 2 cars in the building at the same time. And
didn't Steve Martin do a movie about that once?
Yeah, pretty much. This was one I wish they were going, and it was funny, but it was intense. It was intense because there was a lot of stuff going in every corner of the building. But what I really dug was to see the diversity, because we are car people, right? We like things that, mechanics and things like that. So to see how many different things were going on and the same disciplines of the talent of our team to do that was way cool. So, I'll have to, from a singular project, I'd probably have to reach actually back to when I was at RPPN working with the studio as a customer, and it was the 729 Mustang.
Yeah.
Grabber Green. I gotta say that was a quick SEMA project, but man, that turned out great.
Emphasize quick.
Yeah.
It made an impression with a lot of people too.
Yeah.
That was a great looking vehicle. And the fact that it stuck out so well at SEMA, it really, and that's a hard place to get any attention.
Yep.
The fact that people would gravitate towards that, but that was a thrash of a build. Mm-hmm. And, the fact that we still did design, we did CAD in order to make those flares, and they went through that process to be a well-executed design. And in that time frame, it was awesome.
Yeah.
This wasn't just like, a backyard slam it together SEMA build.
Right.
This was a legit deal.
Done right. Yeah. That was one of my favorites too. I think the other one was the P-51 tribute to Bud Anderson we did with Ford, where it was, all custom paint and everything. That was a really fun project.
That one was a really fun one. And I guess another fun story regarding that one was when we were working on all the design details of that P-51 Air Venture, we were trying to pick all the cues of the actual P-51 Mustang airplane, right? And the one debate we were having in the studio at the time was the 8th insignia logo that we have on the rear of that Mustang. And we weren't sure whether there were a couple of iterations of that 8th insignia. One was just the logo, and then one had the logo with the red circle in the center. And we weren't sure which one Bud Anderson had. And so Jack Roush Sr. was there, and he just pulled up his phone, called up Bud right away on the spot, and Bud picked up. And at that time, I think he was like 98 years old or something. And he picked up the phone, and he just asked him, like, hey, what was the color that you used? And he remembered every single detail. That's what I really found amazing about it, that all those years ago that, he flew the plane, and he still remembered every detail about that plane.
That's cool.
And he told us right away, I had the red logo in it. And then we ended up doing the red logo.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I'm not a designer, but it seems like that was a challenging project, to really try to use all those cues from a Warbird and get it to look really sleek on a Mustang. But you guys nailed it. It looked awesome.
Yeah.
And it's still it's in the collection.
Yep.
It is.
Yeah, it came flying back. Yeah. I mean, if you guys listening want to check that thing out, it's over at our Roush Automotive collection in Livonia, Michigan. So really cool place. Really cool place. I appreciate the peek behind the curtain. I think everybody listening does too. It's cool to hear all these stories from different pieces around Roush, and everybody's got a different story, and it's just really cool to get insight on them. So let's change gears here. Let's look forward. Obviously technology and all that stuff is becoming super important in everything we do. And I wanted to see what you guys thought, or, projects you're working on that kind of point towards the future of where Roush Creative Services is going.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think, especially the design process these days, we are noticing a big change and rapid change actually in technology. We've been integrating VR tech in our design process. So while we're designing, we'll start pulling up the model in VR. So even before it's made, even before we've actually done a physical model for the customer, we actually put on the headsets and then view those models full size in VR. And I think that's a great way to quickly see what the product's going to look like before customers have spent the money going through iterations of, physical models. And that's a really helpful process for us to get to the final physical model as well. And then, of course, like AI has been, changing the world in the design process. Also, it's been changing a lot of things where we've been using AI not necessarily to replace the designer, but it's used as to amplify the designer's skill set. So we use it in our design process to speed up our sketches, our renderings, and we can pump out more iterations in a shorter period of time. So we're using it in a way to help the design process rather than being used as a replacement, which a lot of people are afraid of.
Right. I hear a lot of people concerned, and they should be, about AI and what its implications are. But, this is my own feeling. And I'm a tech guy. I've grown up developing software in my previous life. That's what I did. But I don't think that you can ever replace human talent. I think, just like you said, it'll be a great tool to help amplify what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. It's like, back in the 90s when Autodesk Alias was invented, and, we saw the shift from 100% clay models to digital models as well. A lot of people at that time said, yeah, clay models is, kind of non-existent, and physical models, there's no need for physical models. But even today, it just turned out to be another tool in our design arsenal where we still doing digital models, but at the same time, we still do plenty of physical clay and foam models. So I think with AI being there, it's not necessarily going to replace the talent, the human talent that's doing it. It's just going to help them achieve the result a lot faster.
Yes. Okay. Cool. Sorry, I just had something on my brain. I was thinking through, you were talking about all this technology and stuff, and I was thinking through a quote that when I was working on one of my first projects in the studio with you guys, I think it was like the 2015 Mustang or something. And I think it was Mark who looked at me because we had just gotten out of a session where I think your dad wasn't very happy with one of the designs. And he goes, well, in design, if you make 50% of the people happy, it's a win.
Yeah, that's true.
Is that true?
That is true. Yeah. If you try to please everybody, you end up pleasing nobody.
Right. Yep. And I think just speaking on AI, that, that's got to be a human quality, right? Like anyway, sorry to get off track there, but yeah,
it's a cool tool.
Yeah.
I mean, to your point about Alias, I hadn't thought about Alias, but you're right. I mean, we still do a lot of clay models.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have as much modelers, meaning like shaping it in clay.
Mm-hmm.
We do, the mills are cutting it, but then those people are still there to clean it up, to fine tune it. It hasn't gone away. Yeah. It's just changed its shape.
Mm-hmm.
And the AI tools, with Mark and Dhruv, obviously always looking at how do we always remain, forefront, competitive. AI is an awesome tool.
Right.
It's not, a substitute, but man, the iterations that you can go through and perhaps find something that's a little bit off of where you would be looking otherwise. And, those are really cool, like ways to use it, but, not replace.
Yeah, exactly. Not replace. Yeah, another example was like when we did the 24 F-150 and we'd done a teaser animation for it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember we spent weeks on that to do the teaser, I think 3 weeks or so. And recently, in my own time, I've come across an AI tool, and I think it's still pretty early on where can't really use it properly just yet. But I think as it evolves, it'll be a good tool in the design process where I feel like I can cut down the time from 3 weeks to maybe 5 days or something using that tool.
Okay.
So,
that's great.
Yep. Again, it'll just help speeding up the process, but not necessarily going to replace the person who's doing the animation.
Right. No, that's cool. I mean, technology's crazy these days. All right. So, Kevin, what about you? What do you see for the future of Roush Creative Services?
Wow. Bringing more tech into the part making.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're obviously doing a lot of 3D printing already of different styles and types. We actually do something that's called machined ABS, and that's been an awesome. I'd love to have a better name for it because it sounds very plain and basic, and yet, you know, from RPP days, it's like a good quality part is typically going to be injection molded, so that you can control the outside surface, but also the inside, so it melts. This process lets us do that, control both sides, and you come out with a single part that's needed for a model, and yet it can plug in, it can have fasteners, it can have all those features that you'd find on a fully designed B-side, and it's here in a model. It's been awesome. What that's allowed us to do is, you know, it doesn't fit everywhere, obviously, but where it fits, you can get even closer to what that real final part will look like at this really early prototype stage. So that helps engineers, it helps customers, it helps everyone kind of along the way, you know, get there faster. Because that's always the push, right? Marketing needs a product out. You know, you're getting beat by competitors or whatever. There's always a time crunch. So by that technology that we're using, it raises that bar up. So that's been cool for me to see, because I hadn't seen that prior to coming over to Creative Services, and it's like, wow, okay, that's sharp.
Yeah,
so.
That's cool. Yeah, I think speed to market's become so important. You know, we're in the Amazon age, right? Where it's like, hey, everybody needs it now kind of a thing. So it's cool to see that we're, you know, looking at technology to speed things up. And, you know, I think it is definitely a key differentiator for us. So that's cool. All right. So, my next question might be a thinker, but you know, the world of design and I'll call it branding and all that other stuff, it's always changing. Right. And so I'm curious how you guys stay on top of that, and then, you know, bring some of those trends or those, you know, new views into your process.
I'm going to let the guy with the sport jacket.
Yeah, that's definitely a thinker. No, as designers, we always like to try and keep on top of all the new design trends that are going on. So it's just, you know, whether it's just keeping up to date with all the auto shows that are going on across the world and seeing what all these different car brands are doing. Whether it's, you know, European auto shows or Chinese auto shows, American auto shows, all of those, we'll try and keep up to date with every single different car brand and what they're doing, especially with interiors. I think that's the kind of change that's happened in the last 5-6 years is car companies have really stepped up the interior game. And I think that's always, you know, a good area to improve on, even if we try and come up with the best design possible, 2-3 years later, there's always new tech, and you can always improve the interior even further.
Yeah. Yeah, I have noticed that. I feel like interiors have just gotten just so nice, even on lower trim vehicles. It's crazy.
So guys, I gotta ask you a question. I know this is kind of a tough one, but it's been on my mind, you know, as someone who's passionate about automotive. And so when you look at a car design, and you say, oh, it's good or it's not good, what makes the difference?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And, you know, you can go into all sorts of details, but I think the most successful car designs have been the ones that have been really simple and clean. You know, good design to me has always been about it being timeless and focusing on the simplicity of it. If you know, a lot of car companies today get too fussy with all their character lines. They're trying too hard to make it look like it's properly designed, but they over stylize it by adding too many character lines. And then the surfaces are also not fully refined yet. And if you look at some old cars, you know, I'm a huge fan of 60s cars because that was an era of, you know, simple cars. Mm-hmm. You know, the Cobra that I'm building, I mean, that's really simple. it's literally, there are not a whole lot of character lines to it, but just the overall volume of the body, the stance, the proportions, that's what makes a car timeless, that even 40 years from now, it's still a great design, and you can go back to all sorts of different car brands, Porsche 911, obviously, it's been timeless year and year. And kind of goes back to my earlier point I made about evolutionary design. I think a 911 or even the Mustang has been, good looking throughout the years because it's been an evolutionary evolution of their design theme or their DNA, whereas some car companies try and depart from their history and DNA too much. And I think with the Roush brand, I think we've done a pretty good job of keeping it timeless and consistently good looking, where even 20 years from now, some of our older Roush cars will still look good and they won't look dated.
Mm-hmm. I always go with the does it turn your head, right? As you're driving along, does your head snap?
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Is that something that it was nice to hear you describe it, Drew, because I couldn't articulate it other than, if it really catches your eye in a way of not like, what was that? But, more of like, wow. Like,
yeah, when you see it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Less is more.
Yeah. Or it's the you walk out of it after you park and you lock and you look
back. Exactly.
And then you look back again.
Yeah. If you're not looking back, then it's a bad design.
Yeah.
I think I've done that to cars that I've looked before.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, that's a good one.
Awesome. So let's talk about you guys, because you have some pretty cool projects of your own, right? I think, you've kind of always had something going on, both of you, but I think your current projects are pretty awesome to talk about. So Drew, if you've got, was a 65 Cobra that you're building?
Yep. So it's a Factory 5, 1965 Shelby Cobra replica that they do, and it's a kit. And it's awesome. I mean, you order the kit and you get all the parts, the body, the chassis, everything. You get basically every single part you need other than engine and transmission. And so I just got that recently, and that's been my big project, and I've been building that. And I am going to be putting a Roush crate engine in it. So the Roush 427 IR is what I'm planning on putting in.
Nice.
The Tremec 5-speed TKX. And then after that, it's a lot of Mustang parts too. I'm using the 2018 Mustang IRS for it.
Okay.
And the Mustang brakes from the 2015 Mustang. So a lot of brand new Mustang Ford Performance parts. And the cool thing about it is I don't have to go to junkyards and try and find parts that may or may not fit.
Right.
I just know all these parts are going to fit. So it's almost like real life-size Legos, pretty much, putting together
Nice.
the whole thing.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. I can't wait to see that thing done. So that crate motor is going to be really cool.
Yep.
So, all right, but Drew, how do you as a designer choose one color?
Yeah, that's, so I am gravitating towards blue because, Cobras, they got to be blue. You're doing it the right way. But yeah, which shade of blue, I haven't decided yet. And I'm going to be going through iterations, different renderings, trying out different shades of blues. I'll be doing spray outs on, I've got a 3D printer, so I'm going to be 3D printing just a small scale model of the Cobra. And I'll be spray painting different shades of blues, and then I'll pick the one that looks best. So that's also, the paint process in itself is a design process alone.
All right. We'll talk in a year.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool, man. So Kevin, you've got a long history of some pretty cool stuff.
There's an affliction, I guess you could call it.
Yeah.
So, right now, I'm proud to say the 75 International Scout 2 has been out and about, and last year made its first successful overnight rooftop tent expedition.
Cool. Nice.
Which was like rolling into, granted, we kept things very mild. We didn't go too far, and truly when I got home, I said, whew, made it. But as we arrived into the campground, everyone just kind of stops and they look at it because it's bright orange. It's hard to miss. It's a good 70s bright orange with bold graphics, and it was a lot of fun. It's not fast. It's slow and noisy, but it's good stuff. I'm thoroughly enjoying that. So that's kind of the latest, and it's good stuff. It is good stuff.
Yeah.
It's been fun to see the Scout brand come back. And see what they're doing with that, and get to to see this come around again is really pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
Yeah, that's a cool truck. It's orange, right?
Bright orange. Yeah.
Awesome.
Omaha orange.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So
Nice.
it's got 35s. It's all good.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's plenty capable.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Cool. So I'll wrap this up. I got one last question. Any final words of advice for those who either want to get into design or are going to be designing anything soon?
Yeah. Okay. Well, for those who want to be designers, I'd say just sketch. Practice makes perfect, but just stick to a lot of sketching. And yeah, I mean, car design is a thing I think that has gained popularity in recent years, but a lot of people don't even know that it's a career option. And so, there are some colleges for it. I went to College for Creative Studies in downtown Detroit for it. And it is a 4-year bachelor's degree to pursue transportation design. And they make you do everything. It's not just cars, but you do boats, airplanes, trains, and pretty much what we do at Roush Creative Services. But yeah, it is a career. And for those who are interested, yeah, you can literally draw cars for a living. So I'd say just, keep on sketching.
That's great.
Yeah. For the other part of creative services, going to be for the model shop. And, we've got a really experienced team, but we're always looking for new people, new ideas. So getting younger people in to work with their hands to physically make something, it's awesome. So we've got a recent new hire just started with us about 10 days ago. And I saw him yesterday and just a little check-in. How are things going? Huge smile, right? Huge smile of just being able to, be in an environment where every day you're creating.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, if you're one of those people that really want to do that, like it's a great thing to be a part of.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The creativity piece is awesome. I think from the marketing side, at least the Roush Performance, I can relate to that a lot. Cause everything's always different, right? You come in one day, there's one thing to work on. You come in the next day, there's something else to work on. And just being able to, get that creative outlet is huge. So guys, from first sketch to final badge, it's incredible to see how Roush Creative Services brings these high performance machines to life. So Kevin, Dhruv, huge thanks for joining us today. It was really cool to get a little peek behind the curtain at Roush Creative Services. Obviously you guys are pretty much the backbone of a lot of our projects and products. So definitely appreciate all the work you do. And if you guys like this episode, make sure you're locked in, subscribe and follow us on socials so you never miss a behind the scenes look at the innovation, design, and pure adrenaline that drives everything we do. We'll catch you next time on the You Don't Know Jack podcast.